Hey everybody, welcome to Average Guy Opinions. I'm your average guy, John Corelli. My candle just went out. It rained here a lot today, and it kind of, I think, soaked this candle and give it one more try. You hear that? Everything's wet here. It's weird. It's like Cleveland or something. But yeah, I came to talk about vaccinations. This isn't going to happen. I want to talk a little bit about the history of them, and maybe how that relates to what's going on today with the COVID vaccinations. Anyway, I tried with the candle. I got 1 out of 2. Uh, and I love this weather, as you guys know. It's wet. It's probably about 50 degrees out, and it makes you want to play the kind of sports where you hit somebody. Football, hockey. I love it. Anyway, soccer. Even when I was soccer, I just this is a quick sidebar though. I remember when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s and played soccer, and it was never a tough guy game in my opinion, but it wasn't a game where people dove all the time, and I just hate what soccer's become, that you just dive for an injury. In hockey, they have uh, penalties against diving. If you try to draw a penalty in hockey, they will give you a 2-minute penalty if they think that you weren't really dragged down. It's a beautiful thing. So, but what I came to talk about today was vaccinations, and read a little bit about them. Read a little bit about the history of vaccinations on this planet. Let's see. The first vaccination was invented in 1796 by a guy named Edward Jenner, and it was to fight smallpox, because smallpox was ravaging this planet. And it was weird because what he did is he took cows and took the pustules, which is gross, of cows that had cowpox, and somehow figured out that that's the way, if we get that stuff into our bodies, it'll fight the virus in our bodies. And it was, I don't even know if I'm talking straight right now, but he experimented on a 13-year-old boy, and apparently, I don't know, 1796. What was consent 200 some years ago? I don't know, but it took off, and then there were variations made upon the vaccination, and now we have no smallpox. 225 years later, we don't have smallpox. So pretty interesting. And then after that, the big one was Louis Pasteur with penicillin in 1885, almost 100 years later. And then since then, it's been an ongoing battle between nature and man as far as vaccinating us against very infectious diseases. I know I've mentioned this in the past. Sometimes I think we've gone a little overboard. Some of the vaccines I don't think we necessarily need, but this was pretty enlightening, especially on things like polio. Like, I knew polio was really bad in the middle of the last century. In fact, my stepfather had it. He was born in 1940. Had it. It kind of crippled him for a while, and he got lucky, lived, and ended up fine. But yeah, he had it. So, and that was not an uncommon thing. I remember part of my stamp collection, there was a thing called the Sister Kenny Foundation. It was a big charitable foundation. I believe it was Catholic, maybe not, but it sounds like it's Sister Kenny. But that was one of the things that had to be around to support people that had polio before Jonas Salk really got the vaccination going and widespread. It takes a long time to make a vaccination. A lot of people don't know that. I think we probably learned quite a bit about it because of COVID. I mean, I didn't know how long it took to develop a good vaccination. The general consensus is it takes 2 to 4 years. So we were lucky to get one in a year and a half, and that it's been fairly effective. Um, and it's funny because it's funny that the anti-vax thing is kind of swung from the left wing to the right wing right now. It's like when I was not fond of vaccinations, and I've mentioned this in past videos, was with my son Dante, who has autism, and there was a belief, and actually some fairly correlated evidence, though not fully proving, that the MMR, Mumps, Measles, Rubella vaccine could cause autism with the right environmental factors, including the genetics of the child. I still believe that's quite possible. Whether it's never been proven. And unfortunately, Dr. Timothy Wakefield, the master of that study, ended up. There's a lot of signs that point to corruption through this man, and so very disappointing. There are other doctors that have also looked into it and also agree with Wakefield's findings. So who knows? And especially when you consider that the AMA is very powerful, and other medical associations throughout this world are very powerful, it makes sense that you'd want to quash a thing like that. Now, the reason the MMR was kind of looked at as a possible cause of autism was because in the 70s they combined the three into one vaccine, just like the DTaP, right? You have pertussis for the P, tetanus, and diphtheria. Those are all, that's the DTaP. There's also a Tdap, I get them mixed up, but it's three. There's those three vaccines, and they're all combined into one. Now, whether that's healthy to put into a small child, I don't think so necessarily. So I think, yeah, absolutely. Should we be vaccinated against mumps, measles, and rubella? Yes, we should. Do we have to get them all in one shot? Not in my opinion. And we actually ended up spreading them out with my second son, Logan. And so that was a thing we did that I thought was a good decision. I've also passed on some vaccines, most of which I find kind of superfluous. But I want to get back to not so much necessarily the inventions of the vaccines or the history of the vaccines. I already went over that. But why are a lot of people not getting vaccinated? So this brings me to the second part of the video where this is a bummer, and it makes a lot of sense too. A lot of minorities, the minorities in this country, Latinos and blacks, especially blacks, are not getting the vaccine at the same rate white people are. Why? Well, there is a huge distrust of government and medical science on behalf of those people, and when you see some of the evidence, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm sure most of you have at least heard of the Tuskegee experiments in the 1930s and 40s, and I read a little more. I had to be refreshed. It had been a while, but absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific what they did to black folks down in Alabama. Apparently there was a very high rate there. I forgot, I almost said I forgot the town, Tuskegee, Alabama, and like they said, I think 35% of the population down there was infected with it, and as you know, syphilis is sexually transmitted, and not only sexually transmitted, but mostly sexually transmitted, and is horrific, especially on your brain, make you lose your mind. And so they actually got people to do this under the guise, I don't even know what the guise was. I think they just probably said, well, you're doing a medical experiment. And you know, think about it. Think about a 1930s black man from Alabama. If he's not already behind the curve in terms of education and treatment, he's certainly desperate on probably some other realms, whether it's economic or whatever. So they found an easy target, many easy targets, and all they offered them was like a ride to and from the medical facility and like a hot meal a lot of times. But they also lied to them. It wasn't like they said, oh, we're going to inject you with this thing that could kill you and or make you lose your mind. They just said, well, we're going to do an experiment, and but you'll get hot meals when you're here, not even get paid. So that's one of the big seeds that has grown into a big field of mistrust. Or distrust of the powers that be in this country when it comes to keeping us safe or just medicating us. So I get it, and it was also horrific how they quote unquote rewarded these people and descendants of these people. The article I read said if you were like around the year 2000, so the people that were still alive. Think about it. In the 2000, if you were a young adult in 1932, you're probably at least 90, and they gave these people that could prove. That's another thing. You got to prove that 60 to 70-year-old events and documents and stuff that you were that this was done to you, and they got a whopping total of $37,500, and then their descendants, if they could prove it, got 10 grand. It was probably kind of like an extra fuck you, really. And then they also said, are there any descendants trying to pursue that now? And there still are, but the guy said, well, what kind of money do we have in the coffers for this if these people are successful in their lawsuit? He's like, oh, around 100,000. So it's like, why would you even try? So yeah, I'm not thrilled. I have a bunch of people, all white, that are not vaccinated. They're not all the people around me that are unvaccinated are white, but the ones that are most vocal about it are, and therefore, in my opinion, have the least excuse not to be vaccinated. I still think no matter what color you are, you should be vaccinated. But at least I understand if you're shy about it or mistrustful of the government and the AMA or the huge pharmaceutical companies that are making money hand over fist during this process. You have a right to be. So there's a little, hopefully, education for you. Definitely an opinion. And that's what I do. Average Guy Opinions. Thanks a lot, you guys. We'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.